The soup had to be pureed to a specific consistency. Not too thin, Arthur had a swallowing reflex that had been compromised by the stroke, and liquid that moved too quickly would trigger a coughing fit that could last 20 minutes and leave him exhausted for the rest of the day. Not too thick, the muscles in his jaw had weakened enough that anything requiring real effort to move caused him visible distress. A tightening around his eyes that Sophie had learned to read the way she had learned to read all his expressions, since he lost the ability to produce them with his face. She had learned these things from YouTube tutorials and a second-hand copy of a stroke rehabilitation manual she had found at a thrift store 3 months ago for $4. Before the stroke, she had been learning them in a classroom. She was on the second spoonful when her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it. The notification preview showed a text from the contact she had labeled simply Brenda. She had removed the word aunt from it 6 weeks ago. Not dramatically, not as a statement, just as an accurate description of what the relationship had become. She finished the second spoonful. She gave Arthur a moment. She watched his throat. He swallowed. She picked up the phone. The text was a photograph. Brenda, in a white linen dress and oversized sunglasses, holding a champagne flute at a height that suggested she was toasting something. Behind her, the railing of a cruise ship deck, and beyond that, water so blue it looked artificial, and beyond that, something that might have been the edge of an island. The caption read, "Enjoying the Bahamas. Tell Arthur I miss him. Don't forget to bathe him today, sweetheart." 3 heart emojis, 1 sun emoji, 1 champagne glass emoji. Sophie set the phone face down on the table. She picked up the spoon. Third spoonful. Arthur's eyes were on her face, the way they always were during meals, tracking her with the focused, patient attention of a man who understood that she was the fixed point in a world that had become very small and very uncertain. He could not speak. He could not move his right arm or either of his legs. He could blink and track movement and produce expressions that lived mostly around his eyes. And Sophie had become fluent in those expressions over 93 days of being the only person in the world who was paying attention to them. He was 81 days without his anti-seizure medication at the correct dosage, because Sophie had been cutting the pills in half to make them last longer, which she knew from her nursing coursework was not a medically sound approach, and which she was doing anyway because the alternative was nothing. Sitting on the table beside her phone, partially obscured by Arthur's medication schedule, a handwritten chart she updated every day in the precise, legible notation she had been trained to use, was a document she had received that morning by certified mail from the county family court. Emergency transfer of legal guardianship. State of Florida v. Brenda Vance. Respondent. Petitioner, Sophie Vance. Granted. And beneath it, held together with a binder clip, 412 pages of a forensic financial audit that a federal examiner had spent 6 months compiling, and which contained, in the dry and devastating language of federal accounting, the complete record of what Brenda had done with the money that had belonged to Arthur, and to the life they had built together, and to the insurance policy that was supposed to keep him alive. Sophie fed her uncle his soup. She did not look at her phone again. She had somewhere to be this afternoon, and she had learned, over the past 6 months, to save her attention for the things that required it, to understand how a woman could abandon a paralyzed man and spend a year at sea with his stolen millions, while her 21-year-old niece kept him alive on $12 and cut-rate medications. To understand how that woman could step off a cruise gangway into a Miami morning and walk directly into the worst day of her life, you need to go back to a Friday. Back to a doorbell. Back to the morning Sophie's life was hijacked. She had been studying for a pharmacology exam, 3rd year of nursing school, full academic scholarship, the kind of program that required everything you had and then asked for a little more, and which Sophie had been giving everything to since she was 18, because nursing was not something she had stumbled into or chosen for practical reasons, but something she had wanted with the specific, durable conviction of a person who knows their purpose. She had grown up watching her mother care for people, a home health aide for 20 years, not glamorous, not well compensated, but conducted with a dignity that had impressed itself permanently on Sophie's understanding of what work could mean. She wanted to do it better and more completely, which was why she was in a nursing program and not a home health agency, and why she had been awake until 1 in the morning reviewing drug interaction tables when the pharmacology exam was 3 days away. The Friday morning doorbell rang at 8:15. She thought it was a package. It was Brenda. Aunt Brenda, to be precise, her father's older sister, married to Arthur Vance for 31 years. A woman Sophie had known her entire life and assessed, for most of that life, with the careful neutrality she applied to people she neither fully trusted nor actively avoided. Brenda was fine. Brenda was present at holidays and occasionally generous with gifts, and more often generous with opinions. And she had always treated Sophie with the specific quality of attention that adults gave to children they found competent but not particularly interesting. What was behind Brenda in the hallway was not a package. It was a wheelchair, and in the wheelchair, wearing the gray cardigan Sophie recognized from every family gathering for the past 10 years, looking smaller than she had ever seen him, was Uncle Arthur. "He needs someone," Brenda said. Her eyes were red, which Sophie registered and then immediately began assessing for sincerity. "I can't do it right now. I'm not well. I'm having a nervous breakdown, Sophie. I need you to understand that. I just need 2 days, a weekend. He has everything he needs in the bags." She had brought 2 duffel bags. They contained adult diapers, a blood pressure monitor, 4 bottles of various medications, a suction device for airway management, a sheet with Arthur's medical history, and $40 in cash. "Just the weekend," Brenda said again. She was already backing toward the elevator. Sophie looked at her uncle in the wheelchair. Arthur looked at Sophie. There was something in his eyes, not quite fear, not quite relief, something in between them, the expression of a man who was trying to communicate something he no longer had the equipment to say. "Okay," Sophie said, "just the weekend." Brenda's shoulders dropped with the particular relief of a woman who has successfully transferred a weight she no longer wanted to carry. She left. Sunday came. She called on Monday. Voicemail. She texted. The response came 4 hours later. "So sorry, having a hard time, just a few more days. Arthur loves you." By Wednesday, she had missed 2 classes. By the following Monday, she had missed a week, which in a nursing program was not a week. It was clinical hours that could not be recovered, practical examinations that could not be rescheduled, a trajectory that required continuous presence to maintain. She called her academic advisor. She explained the situation. Her advisor was sympathetic in the genuine, limited way of someone whose sympathy existed within a bureaucratic framework that had specific rules about leave of absence and scholarship continuation. She could take a medical leave. The scholarship would be paused, not terminated. She would need to reapply for reinstatement. She filed the paperwork on a Thursday, which was 23 days after Brenda had left Arthur in her hallway. Brenda's location. As best Sophie could determine from the social media, she had never paid much attention to before and now monitored with the attention of someone tracking a variable she needed to understand, appeared to be somewhere in the Caribbean. The posts were infrequent at first, a beach photo here, a restaurant check in there, and then more frequent as whatever was preventing Brenda from posting seemed to resolve itself. By week 6, she was posting daily, poolside, on deck, at dinner in what appeared to be a formal dining room, wearing a dress Sophie recognized as expensive because she had learned, involuntarily, to recognize these things. The Bahamas text arrived on a Tuesday morning, day 93. Sophie fed Arthur his soup and did not look at the phone again. The apartment had 2 rooms. This had been fine when it was Sophie's apartment, a bedroom, a main space that served as living room and kitchen, a bathroom, adequate for a nursing student who spent most of her time on campus or at the hospital. Now it was a medical facility run by one person with nursing school training and a YouTube subscription and no budget. The wheelchair lived beside the window because Arthur liked the light. Sophie had figured this out by watching his eyes on overcast days versus sunny ones and noting the difference. The hospital-grade bed she had borrowed from a medical supply charity that loaned equipment to underserved caregivers, which she had found through 3 hours of research at 2 in the morning, occupied most of the bedroom, which meant Sophie slept on the couch. She had been sleeping on the couch for 3 months. The medical supplies lived on the kitchen counter, organized by frequency of use, which Sophie rotated each week as the supply levels changed. The adult diapers were the most expensive recurring cost after medication. She had done the math on this repeatedly, in the margins of the notebook where she tracked Arthur's medical observations, as though the number would become smaller if she looked at it often enough. It did not become smaller. She was earning money from a telehealth data entry job she had found online, flexible hours, minimum wage equivalent, something she could do in the 20-minute windows between Arthur's care tasks. The income covered approximately 60% of what she needed. The remaining 40% came from her savings, which were not a savings account in any meaningful sense, but a debit card balance that she watched with the vigilance of someone watching a water level that must not reach zero. On the Thursday of month 3, it was $12. She had not eaten dinner that night. She had told herself she wasn't hungry, which was not true, but which was easier than the accurate accounting of why she wasn't eating. She had cried on the kitchen floor at 3 in the morning with her back against the cabinet and her knees pulled up, and Arthur's blood pressure log in her hand, because she had been updating it when it started and she hadn't put it down. She cried for approximately 40 minutes. Then she stopped, because Arthur had made a sound from the bedroom, not distress, just the particular sound he made when he was shifting position and couldn't complete the movement without assistance. And she got up and went to him and helped him adjust, and stood there in the dark of the borrowed hospital bed until his breathing settled. She went back to the kitchen. She washed her face at the sink. She called Brenda. The phone rang 4 times and went to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail again. She called a 3rd time, and on the 3rd attempt the call connected. And there was background noise, music, the ambient sound of a large room, other voices. And then Brenda's voice, slightly elevated over the noise, with the quality of someone who has stepped aside from something they were enjoying. "Sophie, this really isn't a good time. I have $12, Sophie said. I need to buy his medications tomorrow and I have $12. A pause. The background noise shifted, muffled, as though Brenda had moved to a quieter space. "I'm in Rome," Brenda said. "The international transfers are complicated, you know how banking is. I'll sort it out when I get better service. His anti-seizure medication runs out on Saturday. He's been managing, hasn't he? I've been cutting the pills in half." Silence. "Brenda, if he has a seizure without adequate medication." "Sophie." The voice that came back was the voice Brenda used when she wanted to communicate that she was the adult in the conversation and Sophie was overreacting. "You're a nursing student, you know how to handle this. You're young and strong and Arthur is lucky to have you. I'm trying to heal. I've been through an enormous amount of stress and I need you to not do this to me right now." A pause. "I'll wire something next week. Just manage until then. Family takes care of family." The call ended. Sophie stood at the kitchen counter with her phone in her hand. She looked at Arthur's medication chart on the refrigerator, held up with a magnet shaped like a pineapple that had come with the apartment when she moved in. She put the phone down. She did not cry. She went to bed. The letter from the insurance company arrived on a Tuesday. Standard business envelope, the kind that contained nothing good. Sophie had learned this from 2 years of living independently, that official correspondence in standard business envelopes was almost never news you wanted, and that the specific weight of this particular envelope, combined with the return address from Keystone Premium Health Services, indicated something that required immediate attention. She opened it standing at the mailbox in the apartment building's lobby. It informed her, in the language of a company that had sent this letter many times and had streamlined the language for efficiency, that the premium health insurance policy held under the name Arthur James Vance, policy number KP 2021-4471, had been canceled effective 31 days prior due to non-payment of premium. The policy had lapsed after 3 consecutive missed payments. As a courtesy, the company had attempted contact by mail and by phone at the numbers on file. The policy was no longer active. The letter included a section on reinstatement options. The reinstatement premium, to restore coverage retroactively, was $9,400. Sophie read the letter twice. She folded it carefully. She put it back in the envelope. She took the elevator upstairs. She went into the apartment. She checked on Arthur, who was awake, watching the window, tracking the light. "I'll be right back," she said. She went to the kitchen. She stood at the counter with the letter in her hand, and she did the math that she did not want to do, because she was a nursing student and she understood what the math meant. Without the premium insurance, Arthur's anti-seizure medication, the specific formulation his neurologist had prescribed, which existed in a tier of pharmaceutical pricing that assumed insurance coverage, would cost $2,100 per month at full price. His blood pressure medication, $400. The catheter supplies, $300. the wound care materials for the pressure sores she had been managing on his lower back for 6 weeks. 150, conservatively. Without the insurance, keeping Arthur alive would cost approximately $3,000 a month. She had $12. Sophie set the letter on the counter. She stood in the kitchen for a long moment. Outside the window, the afternoon was doing something ordinary. Traffic, birds, the sound of children somewhere below in the parking lot. The city conducting its normal business with complete indifference to the specific weight of what she was holding. She was not crying. She noticed this with the detached awareness of someone observing their own state from a slight distance. She had cried on the kitchen floor 11 days ago. She had cried in the bathroom 3 weeks before that. She had cried in the car after a phone call with Brenda in month 2, in the parking lot of a pharmacy, where she had just been told the medication she needed was out of stock. She was not crying now. What she was feeling was different from the grief and the exhaustion and the helplessness that had produced the crying. It was colder than those things, more precise. The feeling of a person who has run out of the emotional state that produces tears and has arrived at something harder underneath it. Brenda had not just stopped paying Arthur's insurance because she was careless or overwhelmed or mentally unwell. Brenda had known exactly what the insurance covered. Brenda was a 55-year-old woman who had been married to a wealthy executive for 31 years and who had managed their household finances and their insurance portfolio and their investment accounts with the attentiveness of someone who understood money very well. You did not accidentally stop paying a premium health insurance policy for a man who had been critically ill for 3 months. You stopped paying it because you had made a calculation. Sophie looked at the letter one more time. Then she opened her laptop and she searched for the words elder abuse attorney pro bono, and she found the number for the county legal aid office, and she wrote it down on the back of an envelope, and she picked up her phone. She had stopped crying. She had started something else. The legal aid office was on the 4th floor of a building that smelled like old carpet and fluorescent lighting. Sophie had brought everything. This was not a decision so much as an instinct. The same instinct that had made her document Arthur's care in the nursing observation format she'd learned in her first clinical year. The same instinct that had made her screenshot every text from Brenda and file them chronologically in a folder on her phone labeled, with the dark practicality of someone who had stopped being naive, evidence. She had 3 months of medication logs, 3 months of care records, noting daily tasks, physical observations, behavioral changes, medication adjustments. She had the insurance cancellation letter. She had 47 text exchanges with Brenda, beginning with the cheerful "just the weekend, sweetheart" of day 1 and progressing through the Rome voicemail and the Bahamas champagne photo and everything in between. She had printed all of it. The stack was 2 inches thick. The attorney's name was Margaret Ellis. She was in her mid-50s, with reading glasses pushed up into gray-streaked hair and the particular manner of someone who had spent decades in a field that required her to hear devastating things quickly and move immediately to what could be done about them. She did not react visibly when Sophie set the stack on her desk. She pulled it toward her and began reading from the top. She read for 11 minutes without speaking. Sophie sat in the chair across from her and did not fill the silence because she had learned, from 3 months of being the only person managing a critically ill man in a 2-room apartment, that most silences did not need to be filled. Margaret set the stack down. She removed her glasses from her hair and put them on properly. "How long has she been gone?" she said. 97 days. And she has power of attorney for his medical and financial decisions. She established it 18 months ago when he first started showing cognitive decline. Before the stroke, Margaret looked at the stack. Has she made any medical decisions in the past 97 days? She canceled his insurance, Sophie said. That's the only one I know about. Margaret wrote something on the legal pad in front of her. I'm going to be direct with you. What you've described is abandonment of a dependent adult. The documentation you have is, she paused, considering, unusually thorough. Most people who come in here have text messages and maybe a few photos. You have clinical nursing records. I'm a nursing student, Sophie said. I know, Margaret looked at her. That's going to matter a great deal. The emergency hearing was filed the following morning. The family court judge was a woman named the Honorable Patricia Chen, who had been on the bench for 19 years, and who, in Sophie's assessment during the 40 minutes she spent in the courtroom, appeared to have developed a specific and well-calibrated impatience for a particular category of case. This category of case, Brenda was not present. She had been notified by certified mail to the address on her driver's license, the estate on Birchwood Drive, and by email to the address on the power of attorney documentation. She had not responded. Her attorney of record, a man Sophie had never met, appeared by phone and argued in the measured, slightly defensive tone of a lawyer who had been called with insufficient notice and was doing his best with what he had, which was not much. Judge Chen listened to Margaret's presentation of the case with the focused attention of someone taking inventory. She reviewed the medical logs. She reviewed the text exchanges. She reviewed the insurance cancellation letter, at which she paused for long enough that the silence in the courtroom acquired a texture. Then she asked the question Sophie had not anticipated. Do you have any indication of the respondent's current whereabouts? Sophie looked at Margaret. Margaret nodded. Sophie handed the bailiff her phone, opened to Brenda's social media profile. The most recent post was from 48 hours ago. A sunset photograph from what appeared to be Santorini, the white buildings and the blue-domed church visible in the background, Brenda's hand in the foreground holding a glass of wine the color of the light. The caption read, "Healing is nonlinear. Honor your journey. Sunrise." Judge Chen looked at the phone for approximately 4 seconds. She handed it back. She asked Brenda's attorney if he had anything substantive to add to the argument that his client, who was currently photographing sunsets in the Greek islands, was too incapacitated by personal distress to manage the care of her critically ill husband. The attorney said something careful and inadequate. Judge Chen removed the power of attorney. She granted Sophie emergency guardianship of Arthur James Vance, covering both medical and financial decisions, effective immediately, pending a full review hearing in 60 days. The whole proceeding lasted 43 minutes. Sophie sat in the car, in the parking garage afterward for a while. She held the certified order in both hands and looked at it, and felt something she did not have an immediate word for, not triumph, which was too loud for what it was, and not relief, which was too simple. Something more like the feeling of a foundation being poured, the beginning of something solid beneath her feet after months of standing on nothing. She called Arthur's neurologist from the parking garage. "I'm the new legal guardian," she said. "I need to discuss reinstating his insurance and establishing a care plan." A pause on the other end. "Ms. Vance, the niece." "Yes, I've been trying to reach someone with authority for 2 months," the doctor said. The quality of relief in his voice was something Sophie recognized. It was the same relief she had felt when the judge's gavel came down. "You have someone now," Sophie said. She started the car. The forensic audit was the state's idea. As part of the guardianship process, the court had required an accounting of Arthur's assets, a standard procedure designed to establish what the guardian was now responsible for managing. The family court worked with a forensic accounting firm that handled these reviews, and Sophie had been called into their office on a Wednesday morning 3 weeks after the hearing to review the preliminary findings. The accountant was a man named David Park, 40-something, with the careful precision of someone who worked with numbers that had moral weight. He met her in a conference room with a folder on the table between them. He did not open the folder immediately. "Before I show you this," he said, "I want to make sure you understand that what I'm about to describe is not your fault and is not a reflection of anything you could have done differently. I want to be clear about that." Sophie looked at the folder. "Show me," she said. Arthur's financial picture, as it had existed before the stroke 18 months ago, had been straightforward in the way of a man who had spent 40 years as a senior executive at a logistics company. A pension, substantial retirement accounts, a joint brokerage account, the estate on Birchwood Drive paid in full, and a secondary trust, a private retirement vehicle, established 15 years ago with contributions made over time, that Sophie had not known existed. The trust had held $3,200,000. It had been liquidated 7 weeks after Arthur's stroke. The liquidation had been authorized by a document bearing Arthur's signature, dated to a period when, according to the medical records Sophie had provided to the court, Arthur had been nonverbal and had had no functional use of his right hand. David Park set the authorization document on the table between them. He set beside it the medical record from Arthur's neurologist, dated the same week, documenting the patient's condition as follows. nonverbal. Right side paralysis complete. Unable to sign documents or provide verbal consent. Cognitive status indeterminate pending further evaluation. Sophie looked at both documents. She looked at the signature on the authorization. She had seen Arthur's signature on Christmas cards and birthday envelopes for as long as she could remember. The particular lean of the letters. The way the A in Arthur extended slightly above the line. The signature on the authorization document had gotten the lean right. It had not gotten the A. Where did the money go? Sophie said. David Park turned to the next page of the folder. The $3 million had been wired in 4 transfers over a period of 3 weeks to an account at a private offshore bank registered in the Cayman Islands. The account was held under a corporate shell name, a single-member LLC registered in Delaware that had been established 2 months before Arthur's stroke. David Park let her read the documents in silence. When she looked up, he was watching her with the expression of a man who had done this job for a long time and had never fully normalized the specific weight of what he showed people in this room. The forgery, Sophie said. It's a felony. Multiple felonies, he said, because the funds were wired internationally while the respondent was traveling in international waters on a ship registered in the Bahamas. He paused. It's not just a state matter. Sophie understood what he was saying. You're going to call the FBI, she said. David Park picked up the phone on the conference room table. I'm going to call the FBI, he said. The agent assigned to the case was named Tors. He was methodical and thorough, in the way that FBI financial crimes investigators were methodical and thorough, which was to say completely and without gaps. He met with Sophie twice in the first month, once to review the documentation she had already compiled, which he described with the mild appreciation of a professional acknowledging quality work as unusually organized, and once to discuss the investigation's parameters and what he needed from her going forward. What he needed from her was simple and required a specific kind of discipline. Continue communicating with her normally, he said. Don't change your tone. Don't ask questions that seem like you're fishing for information. Don't do anything that would make her think the situation has changed. Sophie had looked at him. For how long? Tors had checked something on his tablet. The cruise itinerary she posted publicly, the world cruise she's been documenting on her social media, returns to the United States in approximately 6 months. Port of Miami. 6 months. Sophie had done the math on what 6 months of normal communication looked like. Translated into the text exchanges she and Brenda had developed, Brenda's sporadic, emoji-heavy dispatches from whatever port she was currently photographing. Sophie's careful responses, calibrated to sound like the exhausted, submissive niece Brenda believed she was managing. Okay, Sophie said. She had gone home and fed Arthur his dinner and sent Brenda a text that read, Uncle Arthur had a good day today. He seemed to like the sunlight this afternoon. Have fun in Greece. Brenda had responded 6 hours later with a photo of a plate of fresh octopus and 3 heart emojis. The 6 months had a texture to them that Sophie would not have been able to predict before she lived them. They were not the same as the first 3 months. The first 3 months had been defined by a specific quality of helplessness. The feeling of a person drowning in incrementally worsening circumstances with no purchase anywhere on any surface. These 6 months were different because she knew what was coming, and she was managing the timeline rather than being managed by it, and because the material conditions of Arthur's care had changed in ways that altered the daily atmosphere of the apartment entirely. With the guardianship order, Sophie had been able to reinstate Arthur's insurance. The reinstatement premium had been paid from a small account the forensic auditor had located that was in Arthur's name alone and outside Brenda's reach. With the insurance reinstated, Arthur's medications returned to correct dosage within the week, and Sophie had watched the change in him over the following days with the attention of someone who understood exactly what had been withheld and what its restoration meant. He slept better, the tension around his eyes eased. On a Thursday afternoon in the 2nd week, she had been updating his medication chart at the kitchen table and had looked up to find him watching her. And there was something in his expression that was clearer than it had been in months, more present, more himself, the man she had known at holiday dinners and birthday celebrations, and the occasional Sunday lunch at the estate on Birchwood Drive. She had held his hand. He couldn't squeeze back, but his eyes held. In the 3rd month, using Arthur's reinstated legal estate as collateral, Sophie had worked with Margaret Ellis to execute the next phase of what the estate needed. The Birchwood Drive property, the massive house that Brenda had furnished and decorated and treated as an extension of her social identity for 30 years, was, legally and entirely, Arthur's asset. It had been purchased with his money. It was titled in his name. Brenda had lived in it as a spouse, which conveyed certain rights, but those rights had specific limits, and those limits had been the subject of considerable research by Margaret Ellis over the preceding weeks. With Arthur as the title holder and Sophie as his legal guardian, the property could be acted upon. She listed it in month 4. It sold in 3 weeks, at $412,000 above asking price, which was the kind of outcome that the real estate market in that neighborhood occasionally produced, and which Sophie received notification of via email on a Tuesday morning while she was making Arthur's breakfast. She used the proceeds to hire a team of 3 private nurses, rotating 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, a level of care she had researched exhaustively and selected with the specificity of someone who had spent 6 months understanding exactly what Arthur needed. She had interviewed each nurse personally. She had checked references. She had written the care protocols herself, in the nursing observation format she had been trained in, and had walked each nurse through them on their first day. The day the first nurse arrived, Sophie had introduced her to Arthur, explained the schedule, showed her the medication chart and the care records and the emergency protocols, and then had stood in the hallway outside her own apartment for approximately 2 minutes. She had not left the apartment for more than 3 hours at a time in 6 months. She went for a walk. It was raining, which she hadn't checked before she left, and she didn't have an umbrella, and she walked for 45 minutes in the rain through streets she had been too exhausted to notice for half a year. And by the time she got back, her shoes were soaked through, and she was crying. Not from sadness, but from the particular overwhelming quality of relief that arrives when a weight has been lifted and the body hasn't yet recalibrated to its absence. She changed her shoes. She went back inside. She texted Brenda, "Nurse is here today to give me a break. She's wonderful. Uncle Arthur seems comfortable. How is the Mediterranean?" Brenda replied with a photo of herself at what appeared to be a Moroccan market, wearing a linen kaftan, holding up a decorative lantern with the expression of someone who had found exactly the right thing. Magical, the caption read, "You're doing amazing, sweetheart. Family takes care of family." Sophie put the phone down. She opened her laptop. She re-enrolled in the nursing program. The FBI's work happened in a space Sophie could not directly observe, which she had accepted as a condition of the situation. Tours sent her periodic updates, brief, factual, phrased in the language of someone who communicated information on a need-to-know basis and had calibrated her need accordingly. The offshore account had been traced. The Cayman Shell Company had been mapped back to a domestic address. The signature forgery had been confirmed by a forensic documents examiner. The arrest warrants were being prepared. Prepared was the operative word, which was a word Sophie had to sit with for 6 months, because prepared existed in the tense of a thing not yet done, and Sophie had become acutely sensitive to tenses. The cruise ship's itinerary, publicly posted on the cruise line's website, listed its final port of call as Miami, Florida, with an arrival time of 8 in the morning on a Thursday in November. It was a 12-deck vessel, flagged in the Bahamas, carrying approximately 2,000 passengers on a 365-day world cruise, the specific variety of luxury travel product that existed for people who wanted to spend a year at sea without inconvenience. Brenda had booked a suite on Deck 11. Sophie knew this because Brenda had told her, in the early weeks of the cruise, with the particular enthusiasm of someone who wanted the audience to fully appreciate the quality of what they were experiencing. Deck 11. Ocean view balcony, twice daily housekeeping. A butler whose name she had mentioned twice. Sophie had noted the suite number in the same folder, where she kept everything else. On the Wednesday before the ship docked, Brenda sent a text. It arrived at 11:14 in the morning. While Sophie was in a pharmacology lecture she had been attending for 6 weeks since re-enrollment, and which she read during the break. "Almost home, one more day, I can't wait to sleep in my own bed. Have the house cleaned before I get a taxi home, the cleaner's number is on the fridge. See you soon, sweetheart. It's been such a healing year. Heart emoji. Sun emoji. Ship emoji." Sophie read the message twice. She thought about the house on Birchwood Drive, which had been cleaned, professionally and completely, by the staging company that had prepared it for the real estate market, and which was now occupied by a family of 4 who had signed a 30-year mortgage, and were, as of 3 weeks ago, painting the guest room a color they had chosen together. She thought about the butler on deck 11, and the ocean view balcony, and the healing year. She thought about Arthur, who was in the living room of the apartment that was no longer cramped and medically cluttered, but carefully arranged and professionally staffed, watching the window the way he liked to watch it, in the light he had always preferred. She typed her response, "Someone is already waiting for you at the dock." She put the phone in her bag. She went back to her lecture. The port of Miami on a November morning had the particular quality of a place that moved enormous quantities of people and cargo, with the indifference of infrastructure that did not concern itself with individual circumstances. The * Oceania Meridian had docked at 6:47, slightly ahead of schedule. By 8, the gangways were open, and the organized, unhurried process of disembarking 2,000 passengers had begun, a process familiar to anyone who had ever been on a cruise ship, which proceeded by deck in descending order, the upper decks first. Deck 11 disembarked at 8:22. Tours had texted Sophie at 8:15. "She's in the disembarkation queue. We're in position." Sophie was not at the port. She had considered it, had spent some time in the weeks before imagining what it would look like, whether she wanted to be there, what she would feel if she was. She had decided in the end that she did not need to be. She had a pharmacology exam at 10, which she was going to pass, because she had been studying for it with the focused attention of someone whose life had recently reorganized itself around the possibility of a future. She was in the university library when her phone buzzed. Tours done. Brenda came down the gangway at 8:29. She was wearing a wide-brimmed hat in pale straw, the kind sold in cruise ship boutiques and designed for exactly this moment. The arrival, the re-entry into the world, the image of a woman returning from somewhere wonderful. She had oversized sunglasses. She was pulling a carry-on in ivory leather. The expression on her face was the expression of a woman who had been comfortable for a year and expected to continue being comfortable. The crowd on the gangway moved around her at the pace of people who were done with the ship and wanted solid ground. She reached the bottom. She looked around for the car service she had booked, a black SUV that was supposed to be waiting with a sign. 2 men stepped forward. They were wearing dark windbreakers with 3 letters on the back, and they moved with the particular efficiency of people who had done this before and had no uncertainty about how it was going to go. "Brenda Vance," the first one said. Brenda looked at them. She looked at the windbreakers. She looked at the credentials the first one produced. Then she laughed. It was the laugh she used when she encountered something she considered beneath her, a service failure, an unreasonable request, a situation that she believed a single sentence from her would resolve. "There's obviously been some kind of mistake," she said. "Do you know who my husband is? Arthur Vance. He was the VP of operations at Continental Freight for 22 years. I think you want someone else." The first agent did not change expression. "Ma'am," he said, "we know exactly who your husband is. You're under arrest for federal wire fraud and felony elder abuse. Please turn around." The handcuffs were the point at which the laugh stopped. It stopped the way something stops when it runs out of the thing producing it. Not gradually, but completely, a switch thrown. The sound that replaced it was not a word. It was something prior to words, the involuntary noise of a person who has been operating in one reality for a year and has just been moved, without transition, into a different one. Around her, passengers continued to disembark. Most of them registered what was happening with the sidelong attention of people who understood they were witnessing something they shouldn't stare at directly. A few stopped. A woman near the railing said something to the man beside her. Brenda turned. She was saying something. Sophie would not learn the specific words until Tor's follow-up message later that day, though she would have been able to guess them. Something about lawyers and mistakes, and who she knew, and how this was going to be handled. The second agent guided her forward. The wide-brimmed hat caught the edge of the railing as she was moved through the terminal entrance. It fell. It landed on the concrete of the port, pale straw against gray, and was stepped over by 2 passengers and not retrieved, because the person it belonged to was not in a position to retrieve it. Inside the terminal, the second agent said something to her. She stopped talking. They kept walking. Tor's full message arrived at 9:47. while Sophie was reviewing her pharmacology notes in the library, taken into custody without incident. Processing underway. The offshore accounts have been flagged for recovery. The FBI's asset recovery process will take several months, but the funds are frozen and accessible. You'll hear from the federal prosecutor's office within the week regarding the estate proceedings. Your attorney has been copied. Sophie read the message. She read it again. Then she put her phone in her bag and she looked at the pharmacology notes on the table in front of her. A chapter on cardiac medications, drug interactions, dosage calculations, the kind of material she had been working toward for 3 years and had spent 6 months away from, and was now again working toward. And she thought about Arthur in the apartment, watching his window. She thought about what she was going to be able to do for him now. Not just for now, for the months ahead, when the recovered funds would allow for the level of rehabilitation care that his neurologist had outlined in the plan they had discussed 3 weeks ago. Intensive physical therapy, speech pathology, the particular, patient, expensive work of giving a stroke survivor back whatever could be given back, which was, the neurologist had told her carefully, impossible to predict in advance, and which was therefore best approached with consistency and resources and time. She had those things now. She was going to have them for a long time. She opened to the cardiac medications chapter. She had 40 minutes before the exam. She started reading. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, Sophie drove Arthur to the new house. It was a single-story property 20 minutes from the university. No stairs, wide doorways, a garden in the back that received afternoon light. She had found it through an estate sale agency that Margaret Ellis had recommended, and had purchased it with the first tranche of recovered funds under Arthur's guardianship, with the full legal documentation that the federal recovery process required, organized in a folder that she had prepared with the same meticulous attention. She had given every folder that mattered. She pushed his wheelchair up the ramp she had installed, a professional-grade ramp, properly graded, with handrails, and through the front door, and into the living room, where the afternoon light was doing exactly what she had hoped it would do when she had stood in this room a month ago and faced the window and calculated the angle. She positioned him in front of the window. She sat in the chair beside him. Outside, the garden was doing the unremarkable things gardens did in November. The light was lower, the colors muted, a bird doing something ordinary in the hedge along the back wall. Nothing about it was extraordinary. It was simply a garden, in the afternoon, quiet and unhurried and entirely real. Arthur's eyes moved to the window. He was still. He watched the garden the way he watched things he found worthwhile, with the focused attention that had survived everything else the stroke had taken. The part of him that had always known how to be present in a moment and had not forgotten. Sophie looked at him. She thought about Brenda in a federal processing facility, which the prosecutor's office had described in their first communication as a pretrial detention arrangement pending the bail hearing, which had been set, and which Brenda's attorney had attended, and at which bail had been granted at a level that accounted for flight risk in a way that made the number very large. She thought about what 20 years of federal sentencing guidelines looked like for wire fraud and elder abuse, which Torres had walked her through with the careful neutrality of someone conveying information, rather than advocating for an outcome. She did not think about Brenda for very long. She looked at the garden. She looked at her uncle. Next semester, she was taking advanced clinical practice and gerontological nursing, a course she had specifically selected because it would make her better at what she was already doing and what she intended to keep doing, which was caring for people who needed it, with the full weight of everything she knew. She would finish her degree in 18 months. Her tuition, going forward, was covered by the estate she managed. Her uncle was alive and in a good house and watching a garden in the afternoon light. She reached over and rested her hand on his. He couldn't squeeze back, but she had learned, over months of reading the things his face could still say, what it looked like when he was at peace. It looked like this. Outside, the garden held its ordinary quiet. Sophie stayed in the chair beside him and did not need it to be anything more than what it was. It was already enough. It was more than enough.